What's the charge on my AirPods? Actually, they can do a charge on me. This is me debating what to do for my medicine application. This is what I don't get yet. How is my quantitative reasoning? Yeah. Not even above average, but I'm scoring like 700 plus. Because I realised, right, I am going to do a situational judgment at some point. Even though I got banned 3, I really can't risk banned 4, so surely watching there.
Hello guys and welcome back to the channel. So I hope you guys are doing well. This is a continuation of the kind of slow walkthrough series, something which I think you guys... Hello guys and welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be looking at some of these most least appropriate questions. So this is something that was requested recently. My and especially because a lot of people do express difficulties and concerns with this. But it's important to know in SJT, and if you guys haven't watched my SJT guide video, I would highly recommend you do so. In SJT, whilst these questions are things that students often find difficult, they're probably not the things that make or break your grade. Okay, it's the other questions that are important. So if you're not good at these, it's not the be all or end all. However, I thought it would still be nice if we can talk through some of these questions together. So Clara is a third-year medical student who is on placement at a local hospital. She's assisting in the care of Miss Thomas, an elderly patient who sustained a skull fracture and brain hemorrhage, falling down the stairs 3 days ago. Miss Thomas has had bad experiences with operations in the and is very concerned that she will require an operation on her head. Clara was unable to attend the team meeting this morning due to other commitments in the hospital. Because of this, she is unaware of how the doctors plan to deal with Mrs. Thomas's injuries. As Clara walks by her bedside, a very distressed Miss Thomas asks Clara if she will need an operation. Giving Mrs. Thomas a few books and magazines to keep her attention diverted, tell Miss Thomas that Samaki should be operated on because of her age, ask Miss Thomas to wait for a doctor to come and speak to her. Okay, so the thing here is, I feel like you can't tell someone like this information here because she's unsure about what's actually happening. Okay, she's unsure about the treatment plan. I think this is probably going to be the most appropriate because the doctor is the one that knows exactly what's going to happen. To keep her attention diverted, it's not amazing, but it's really not the end of the world. At least with this one, you're not kind of like lying to the patient as such, or well, making a claim. At least with this one, the person that speaks to is going to be someone that's going to be able to help her. So Jennifer is a medical student who's following Richard, a junior doctor. Jennifer and Richard see Aileen, a patient who's familiar to both. She requires a blood test, and Richard completes this procedure. Richard has other patients to see, so leaves Jennifer to speak to Aileen. Aileen tells Jennifer she's annoyed that she overheard Richard speaking loudly about confidential medical information earlier that day. Reassure Eileen that Richard didn't mean to spread confidential information. Tell Eileen that Jennifer will raise her concerns with Richard. Advise Eileen to follow the hospital's complaint procedure if she wishes to make a complaint. So she's annoyed in this situation. So this is probably going to be the most appropriate. Actually, no. So this is probably going to be the most appropriate because it validates her concerns and says that she'll raise them with Richard. Okay, this one is probably okay, right? So it's not the end of the world. She, at least it tries to reassure. Maybe she doesn't understand why she's getting annoyed, or it feels like she might not be validating her exactly. But at least it does try to calm the situation down. And this one kind of makes the situation worse, right? It's kind of exacerbating. Natalie is a medical student on a surgical placement for the last month. A nurse on the ward has been rude to Natalie several times, doubting her competency to care for patients and make medical decisions. She called Natalie stupid in front of patients and staff members. Natalie has been feeling very upset and tried to talk to Amy about it, but was ignored. Okay, so ignore Amy's comments and keep striving to be a better student doctor. Talk to Amy again, ask her why she's been treating her badly. Inform the consultant about Amy's behaviour. So, I think, I think this is probably least appropriate because I feel like if there is a problem, you are meant to deal with it as opposed to try to ignore it and put it off, basically. Okay, I would say here, for example, it said Natalie's been feeling a bit upset and tried to talk to Amy about it but was ignored. So in this situation, it's probably appropriate to escalate because I would say that she tried, but she didn't. She didn't really get anywhere with it. Said she was ignored. Okay, and it's quite a serious situation. So Ryan is a dental student on placement at a dental practice. He works with a dental nurse, Margaret. After work, Ryan scrolls through social media and sees an image that Margaret has posted of herself in the examination room to commemorate her first year of work for the surgery. While in the background of the image, Ryan is also able to see Mrs. Drummond, a patient who Margaret treated that day. The post received a lot of likes and many comments from Margaret's followers. Ignore Margaret's post, as it's been online for a while, many people have seen it. Probably least appropriate. Tell the dental surgery manager about the image. Privately informed Myra suggested that she delete the image. It's probably going to be most appropriate, so that was quite a nice one. Dr. Gardner is finishing a very busy shift on the hospital ward he's currently working on. He has been working for over 12 hours now, and the hospital is extremely busy. He's very tired and stressed and is waiting for the FY1 colleague who is due to replace him for the evening shift. One of the reception staff has just received a call to inform Dr. Gardner that the FY1 is going to be 15 to 20 minutes late. There's only a 30-minute overlap in which to hand over cases to the FY1 colleague. This will not leave enough time to finish handing over the cases, and will leave Dr. Gardner finishing late for the fourth time that week. Dr. Gardner promised his wife that he would be home on that night as they've got a table at the fancy restaurant for their wedding anniversary. So, most and least appropriate here. Okay, so make a list of patients of the FY1, outline their main health needs, and leave it on the notice board in the doctor's office at the end of the shift. Make a list and briefly explain to the FY1 in 10 minutes that Dr. before his shift finishing and the FY1 arriving. Leave a voice note to his message explaining that he'll be 20 minutes late. So this is probably going to be the most appropriate, I would say. Okay. So there's only a 30-minute window in which to overlap. So I would say that this, the least appropriate is going to be just leaving it there. Because with handovers, you're meant to speak about things and ask questions and stuff. So that's the main idea here. You can't just leave it, if that makes sense. At least here you do talk about it. For minutes if it is 10 minutes. But with this one, this is kind of just leaving a list, and that's not really right. Okay, so let's mark this test here, see how we did. Okay, so let's have a look at question 2, for example. Okay, interesting. So, I mean, I thought it would be the other way around, but practical advice that we followed up and does not put Jennifer in a difficult situation. Okay, it would be appropriate to raise the issue directly with Jennifer. Directly with Richard, but not ideal. More efficient for Jennifer to advise the patient to go through the official complaints procedure. Fine, okay, I guess Jennifer is a medical student in this regard. Okay, yeah, whether or not intended breach has occurred, the patient is not.
Okay, let me do what you just did. Okay, so if it's a lab experiment on the effect of acid on muscle tissue, the acid tissue acid or solution on muscle tissue which results in so much using days choosing this for action. Inform her first what happened and ask for an extension. that data for a reason. Aisha is a medical student on placement. During her lunch break, her friend Marge approaches her and complains about a junior doctor, Madrif. Marge says that Madrif is always late for her shifts and uses her phone whilst with patients. Aisha has never seen Madrif this way and perceives her to be a fellow colleague. Let's see her job. Alyssa is a dental student on placement in dental practice. While on break, she picks up a magazine and comes to Atlanta to focus. Marek is a medical student on placement with a general practitioner. He is shadowing Dr. Patel, who is attending. A junior doctor, Robin, has been asked to accompany an urgent. Is that good? Is that bad? I don't know. bit lower, I can't lie. Flip, no, 1,000 questions. It seems like the least important type of questions the world could ask for. Adam's medical on placement on a busy ward. He is shadowing a junior doctor as he completes his ward rounds. Dr. Green speaks to the patient, Helena, who has a bacterial infection. He describes the patient's right. She could die. A junior doctor, Jacob, has been working on weekend shifts for the past 2 months and is scheduled to have the next one off. He does not have any plans, but is looking for the right time to. Holy shit. Holy shit. I thought that meant incapacity. Okay.
In the situation needs to be addressed. That is very true. Okay, so I thought this is quite hard one actually, question 2. So I guess something we can potentially even learn from. Okay, great. So on to another. Okay, so if we go for another 5 question sets. So here is a medical student on place.
Oh damn, this is only 4 questions. What the fibbly doodah? Wait, so band 2 would have been 3.5 more marks. I'm pretty sure I didn't even read these questions. That's pretty flipping easy then, isn't it? Anyway, I do need a poop though. Yeah, if there's only flipping. Okay, let me ask ChatGPT. Okay, what is the situational split? Do I have a poop now? Okay, I'm gonna go to the toilet now. Oh, no, I'm gonna poop now. Where's my phone? I want to do Anki cards. I forgot. I want to test something. I want to see whether my Anki syncs automatically. Yeah, okay, it does. seeing the abs go away, which is good. I'm trying to bulk. I'm not bulking really. I'm just. Yeah, I'm not bulking. Okay, I did do cards. My phone doesn't automatically sync for some reason. I think it's because it's always in low power mode. That's this question. Do another 5. I didn't see it was urgent.
In a busy hospital ward, she's working alongside fellow medical student Danielle. On lunch break, Danielle bursts into tears. She tells Samira that she's not coping with her job. She believes the consultant is too demanding, and the nurses have criticised her for not keeping up with the workload. So, Samira, how she should take response in this situation. Talk to Danielle about worries and offer to join her to speak to the consultant. Encourage her to seek counselling. Offer to assist Danielle with her workload. I think this is going to be the most appropriate. Okay, so it says the consultant is too demanding, nurse have criticised her for not keeping up with the workload. So encourage Danielle to seek counselling to help her manage her anxieties. Offer to assist Danielle with her workload. So I think probably the least appropriate is potentially going to be this one, because what it's going to do is it's not really going to help her in the long term. Okay, so because she can't help her forever, she has to learn to deal with it. Okay, or at least come up with some way to better understand the workload as such. At least with this one, it does help her, kind of quell her fears and anxieties. Cordelia is a dental student. She's friends with fellow dental student Doug. Doug tells he's finding the course very difficult. He struggles to complete work on time and has made a number of mistakes while on placement. Explains to Doug that she's always there if he needs any help or support. Encourage Doug to speak to his educational supervisor. I say this is probably the most important because he says he's finding the course very difficult. Encourage him to take time off is probably the least, because it's kind of, it's not really letting Doug kind of speak about any issues. It's basically just saying that, you should just give up immediately and take time off, right? It's not really talking him through his potential possible opportunities and ideas. There may be things he can do to be able to overcome this, right? Instead of just giving up immediately and taking time off. Adil is a medical student on placement in the hospital. The consultant has asked Adil to arrange an urgent CT scan for Mr. Lewis at the radiology department. Provides a written request to book the scan. Is contacted by the radiologist a few hours later. He has rejected Adil's request due to missing information. Okay, so call the consultant to inform the radiologist has rejected the request. Ask the radiologist to explain what's missing in more detail. Probably this one's going to be most appropriate. Take the CT scan request to another radiologist. Okay, this is probably going to be least appropriate because if this is rejected for a reason, then it's important to understand it. At least with this one, maybe you inform the consultant of it. Okay, okay. So let's keep going. Ben and Raj are finally a medical students currently on clinical placement. During a lunch break, Ben tells Raj he was physically attacked by another medical student while on a social night out. This was an unprovoked attack. Ben looks concerned and asks Raj if the discussion can remain.
Okay, definitely not this one. That's least.
Confidential. Okay, so call the medical student in question, ask for a meeting, discuss the situation, meet with the student supervisor, discuss what the best action to take is. Keep this between Ben and yourself. So, I would say, so here, this is difficult for Raj to do. I'd say potentially this one, since he's unsure what to do in this situation here. Okay, call the medical student in question, ask for a meeting to discuss it. So since it's been physically attacked, I feel like you're not See, this one I feel like makes it worse, maybe. I feel like neither of these are really that great. For that reason, I would say to...
I would 10,000% say this. If he asks for the say confidential, you don't call up the guy who's throwing out punches. Yo, bro, let's meet up.
Keep this between Ben and yourself is probably least appropriate. I feel like you're not meant to do that. Harry, a medical student, is completing a hospital placement. He's shadowing a consultant, Dr. Gibson, during the ward round. Dr. Gibson is writing a medicine prescription for the patient they are currently seeing. As Dr. Gibson finishes writing the prescription, he's asked to see a very sick patient. As a matter of urgency, he leaves the ward. The patient asks what medication is prescribed, and Harry tells her he says she's allergic to that medication. A nurse is due to administer the medication later that day.
Best, worst.
So, leave the prescription in the patient's notes for another doctor to check during the next ward round. Explain to the patient that Dr. Gibson prescribed the correct antibiotic. Explain the patient's concern and check the notes with another doctor. Probably this one is going to be most important. Most appropriate. Leave the prescription in the patient's notes for another doctor to check during the next ward round. It's not ideal, but with this one, explain that Dr. Gibson prescribed the right. That's probably going to be the least appropriate, because if she says she's allergic, then there's probably a reason why she's saying that. Okay, so it's important to take that into account. So at least this one deals with it somewhat, just not immediately. Okay.
What? How did he get that right?
So, I hope that kind of makes a little bit more sense. I've just talked you through some of my ideas, some of the ways that I've worked through these questions, and like I said, remember, it's not necessarily about having to get all of these right all the through his potential possible opportunities and ideas.
What's the fastest thing that humans have ever launched? A hypersonic jet? Nope. A rocket? Still too slow. The answer is a manhole cover. Wait, that's impossible. Alright, fine. The fastest non-subatomic objects at the time. In 1957, the US was testing nukes underground. One test, called Pascal B, had a 900 kilogram steel cap sealing the shaft. When the bomb detonated, the pressure inside basically turned the shaft into a nuclear cannon. The steel cap shot up so fast, it was caught on camera for just a single frame before it disappeared. Scientists estimated it was moving at 5 times the Earth's escape velocity. So did it make it into space? No one ever found it because it probably vaporized in the atmosphere. But if it didn't, that means a manhole cover beats Sputnik into space.
Was recently hired for a one-day job by a boomer company. I had to get up really early in the morning. I drove an hour. I got halfway there. I got a text that said, canceled. I drove another hour back home. 2 weeks later, I got another text that said, job is on again. Come to this address. I got to the address. Another said, address changed. Now you may wonder who this company is. The boomer company that did this is the same company that arranged this debate.
Oh no!
He came up here to take shots. He came here to expose him.
Was recently hired. Was recently hired.
Why can't you even use it for the hose I have at home? Because
Like that one?
Have you tried to sell this?
No, I haven't. The main reason why is because I've been focusing on the fire side.
Wait, let's stop. There are 2 or 3 hose makers in the U.S. that supply all the big boxes. They're huge. Why wouldn't you go to them and say, I have a better way to attach your garden hose to every home in America, and you can pay me 20 cents. And
Don't listen to him. 20 cents is way too low.
this is a big deal. I just want the garden hose piece. I'm going to pay you $500,000 for 100% of that, and I'll pay you back a royalty of 3% in perpetuity.
Let me put it on the table, Jeff. $1.25 million for 100% of your company.
I've never seen greed like that. That's unbelievable.
3-year
Great.
employment agreement, so you're making $100,000 per year, plus 7.5% royalty on everything sold.
If you accept that, Jeff, I want a moment of silence for what...
Mark, I like your offer a lot better. I'll accept it.
Anyway, that was a nice little YouTube short break. I don't feel any more relaxed. I should have read a book or something. But the problem is, right, it's weird. YouTube shorts, you're like, oh yeah, I'll do a 4-minute break. But at the end of it, you don't feel relaxed. But if I read a book, bro, I've got to spend at least like 20 minutes reading it. Okay, so what I've gotten from this, right, is that I want to be confrontational. You want to be direct and patient care, basically. That's what I've gotten from these questions. You want to... You want to be direct. I think confrontation is good, but I don't see how that would improve the situation. That doesn't really do anything. And then, yeah, just, you need to tell someone. How do we both do the same question? Dr. Hoy is working on a busy hospital ward. think it's pretty silly. He should interview the patient. Actually, yeah, because patient care and that. Okay. It's bad, but it's the same. You know what, yeah? I'm giving myself this mark. I actually meant to click that. I meant that won't do anything. This, you know, I already did. I watched the video. Anyway, yeah. So in the next room, GP study, she sees a patient, Miss Howley, shouting at the receptionist about her employment. Her mind is a medical student on placement from the hospital. She's working alongside Kira for the medical student. Kira has left the ward without informing her. A nurse has told Harmony that Kira had left. Oh, there's a fly on my screen. Contact. That just seems like, yeah. Yeah. fuck am I doing wrong, bruv? What am I actually getting so wrong?
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for all the overwhelming responses.
Why is my mum awake at 6 a.m? I do not know. I don't know. See, that's no confrontation. You want confrontation of some sort. Laura is currently on placement in the ISS. There's a decreased number of patients who are coming in. He's well unstable. Wait, no. That is appropriate. direct confrontation.
Positive comments that I've had. These last couple of days, the channel's really taken off, which is 100% would not have happened without you. So I really, really do appreciate that. As a result of that, and because I want to give back, I thought that maybe I could do a giveaway of some kind, where I'm going to be picking one student in order for me to be basically tutor them for free one-to-one over these next coming days. So all you have to do in order to be eligible for that is make sure you like the channel, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below. It can just be anything at all, and I'll be picking one of you over the next couple of days, and I'll get in contact with you. But yeah, no, I just thought it would be a way that I'd be able to give back to you guys, as it really, really does mean a lot. So thank you so much. So today we're going to be covering SJT. And most importantly, I think the best thing I can teach you is about how I actually approach SJT questions. Okay, so we're going to come on to doing that, but just a couple of things I want to talk about before that. So first of all, I'd like to say that the first thing with SJT is that there are so many common answers in there. It's just about practice. Okay, the good thing with SJT is like I don't really think it's necessarily
Not saying anything. But is it a coincidence he picks the person with an attractive female as a profile picture?
that hard to be able to get either a band 2 or a band 1. I think most people should be able to get a band 1 if you kind of follow some of the ideas in here and actually understand what the answers mean. Okay, so first of all, there's so many answers that are common. So things like, okay, you should never lie, you should never cheat, you should never steal, things like considering people's competence, considering patient safety, all of these are common ideas. So if you do enough practice, you'll be able to understand some of these answers. Okay, and it's not only just like the very inappropriate or very appropriate answers you're going to be learning as well. You can learn some of the others. So for example, in a scenario where there's like a team, for example, and someone is not doing their work, one of the statements might be about like how the team's feeling or the team's emotions and whether that should be considered, and that's almost always important. Okay, it just is. But we'll come on to kind of some other ideas as well. So as I mentioned about key ideas, so I will talk about this in just a second on the next slide. I've introduced, I've written down some of the key ideas, but we'll come back to that. The other thing that's important in SJT is considering the role of the individual. Okay, so a doctor is not all of them. So first of all, patient safety and competence is always a priority. So how competent the doctor is, the fact that they're able to do their job properly, super important. Patient safety obviously super important. Next, it's always best to solve locally before escalating. Okay, see if you can attempt to solve it locally and then escalate. The only exceptions to this are once again if patient safety is compromised. For example, if you need to decide on what a certain medication is, but I don't know, the senior doctor prescribed it has gone on holiday, or the junior doctor prescribed it has gone on holiday and is unreachable, they're not picking up the phone, then it's probably best to go one ahead of them, go to a supervisor or whatever. Okay, confidentiality once again super duper important. Okay, the only exceptions are when once again when someone is in danger, someone's patient safety is in danger. So, for example, if an individual comes into a GP, they say they've been banned from driving, they tell the GP, well, listen, I've just driven here today, then the GP has a right to inform the DVLA about that because they're putting other people at risk, not just themselves, but other people as well. Okay? A couple of other things. So, lying, cheating, stealing, these answers are always wrong. These are always wrong things to do, so these are always going to be very inappropriate answers. And finally, regulations, laws, guidelines, these are also always very important, so you just have to follow them. There's a reason why they're there. So, things like wearing ID badges for verification when you're on placement, making sure that you follow the strict rules and codes of conduct that they have in place, etc. The other thing that can be quite useful is for those of you who have Medify. I'm not sure if you know about this feature. So, when you go to the Medify like home practice page, it gives you like a bar chart of like how each of your scores is compared to the average. But instead of choosing like all of your sections, you can choose SJT specifically. And when you choose SJT specifically, it breaks it down into the different sections that they have. So, hey, dealing with emergency, relative interaction, competence, etc. Okay, so why this is useful is then you can kind of hone in on the areas that you're a little bit weaker about. Okay, so this one I think is health of students and doctors. You can see it's probably my weaker section after the law. So what I can do is I can click on that, and when you click on that, it shows you the questions that you got wrong, so you can kind of review them and keep them in mind. So one of the things with SJT is sometimes really weird scenarios come up, and you kind of have no choice other than to just try and learn them. Okay, like this will be like an odd scenario that comes up. Like I said, most of it will repeat and you'll be familiar with, but occasionally an odd scenario will come up, which is absolutely fine because it just means it's a learning tool. Okay, it means you can learn it for next time, you can bear it in mind. Okay, but it's really important to understand this idea and to basically have it there. But I think this is a really useful tool that Medify have done, so you can kind of see, oh, I'm a little bit, Okay, so now onto the actual questions. And so what I want to talk to you guys about is actually understanding the difference between these terms. So I think often people kind of give answers kind of based on vibes, right? So there's no real understanding or logic behind them. But I like to think that there is a logic behind these answers and that there is a way of understanding how they work. Okay, so this is just a fairly kind of simple question. So first of all, so sometimes you can answer questions that you're looking at the passage. So what did I say? Competence and patient safety things are always going to be very, very important. So this answers A. Okay, but the question that I want to ask you guys is what differentiates A from B? Okay, I know that seems kind of like a silly question. That's obviously the difference between very important and important. And what differentiates C between D? Obviously, there's a difference between not minor importance and not important at all. But the point I'm trying to get is, do you have a logic for doing it? Okay, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go on to the next question. I'm going to explain a logic for it. Okay, so let's have a look at this one. So me, a medical student, is on placement in an antenatal clinic in a rural community. The clinic is under resourced with only one doctor and 3 midwives. A patient comes into the clinic to have a baby delivered. Most staff, including doctors, are unavailable as they're dealing with emergencies. An experienced midwife support from Mia to deliver the baby. Mia does not feel comfortable helping deliver the baby. So, how important to take into account are the following considerations for Mia when deciding how to respond to the situation. So the first one is about the learning experience. So the learning experience that she will get from helping deliver the baby. So the way that I like to think about it, and if you go back, you realize I called it the 50-50 rule. So first of all, you have to decide, is this something to consider or something to not consider? In this case, I would say learning experiences are cool, okay, but in this case here, the baby is what comes first, the baby and the mother, their safety. So I would say that the learning experience does not matter. So I would rule out A and B, so I'd say it's between C and D. But then I would ask myself, is it C or is it D? And this is where we get to the idea of how do you actually differentiate between the two. And the way that I like to think about it is if it's C, there's something to slightly consider here. But if it's D, there's nothing to consider. So are learning experiences important? Yes, they are, they have some value. So I would argue the answer here is C, because overall learning experience doesn't matter, but there's something slightly important here, which is what makes it C as opposed to D, whereas like a D would be like, there's nothing important here at all. Okay, so the answer here is C, not D. So that's what the 50-50 rule is, which basically you divide it into either is important or is it not, and then you further divide it, ask yourself, is there any kind of positive ideas behind it, is it all negative, and vice versa. So let's have a look at this question. Jack, a dental student, has been given a minor role in the annual charity comedy and cabaret evening hosted by the Dental School's Drama Society. He's been given a script which he's required to learn for his role. On reading the script, he discovers that the comedy sketch he's involved in makes a joke about international students. Jack finds the joke offensive and feels uncomfortable about performing it. However, when he raises it with the other cast members, they do not share his views. So the main idea here is we have an offensive joke that has to be dealt with. So his relationship with the other cast members, if he reports offensive joke to a student. So that's 50-50 here. So first of all, does the relationship matter? Like, what's more priority here? An offensive joke that could potentially be said, or the relationship? I would say it's the offensive joke. Okay, and anyway, that's what the SJT guidelines and that's what UCAT wants you to say. The offensive joke is more important. So therefore, the relationship is not A or B; it's one of C or D. But as I said before, is there something important about the relationship? I would say so. I would say that relationships are still important. You're meant to maintain good kind of teamwork with your colleagues and with your fellow kind of cast members, etc. So for that reason, I would say the answer is C. Okay, so let's go on to this one then. That as he only has a minor role, his views may not be listened to. Well, if you think about this, you've got a situation here. Should he consider the fact that people might not listen to him? No, he shouldn't. So it's not A or B, once again doing 50-50. Because, you shouldn't be afraid to speak up about something just because you're, junior or something. This isn't, like the whole system of the NHS and also just the world that we live in is it's not just about, it's not like a tyranny as such, right? If you see a problem, you're allowed to speak up about it. You're meant to speak up about it. It's not about how big your role is or, it's not a power control thing. Is there something to consider here? I would say not at all, really. So I'd say the answer here is D because the role at all is not considered. Like, you should never be afraid to speak up about something just because someone might not listen to you. Okay? Yeah, that's not important at all. Okay.
Same thing. Say D.
What about this one? So the fact that the other cast members do not seem to find the joke offensive. So once again, that's 50-50 here. Does it matter if the other people don't find it offensive? If Jack finds it offensive? I would say it doesn't matter because if you find it offensive, you have a right to report it and you have every reason to do so. So a lot of people here put D because they think, like I said, along those lines. But let me just draw a parallel to the situation. So imagine you're at a party and someone makes a joke and let's say there's 1,000 people at the party and all 999 people are laughing except for you. It's very, very possible, therefore, that you may have misinterpreted something. Do you see? So that's why the answer to this one, I would argue, is C, because there's something to consider here. Okay, overall, in the grand scheme of things, not important, because just because the others don't find it offensive, if Jack finds it offensive, he's more than happy to, we're more than happy for him to speak about it, discuss it, report it, whatever it is. But the fact that no one else seems to find it offensive may raise like a slight thing in his brain thinking, maybe I just misinterpreted something. Okay, but overall, it doesn't matter. So that's what makes it C as opposed to D. Okay, so let's have a look at this one. Merrin, a medical student.
What kind of question is this, bro? This one in the book. Okay, is 4 to the power of 19 bigger than like what? Minor importance, because it will decide whether
is walking through a hospital corridor when she sees a small pool of liquid in the middle of the floor. She's already 5 minutes late at the start of the shift. However, she does not want to leave without cleaning up. Merrin must decide how to deal with the situation. How important is it to take into account the following considerations? Merrin deciding how to respond to the situation. That it's not Merrin's job to clean the hospital. Okay, so first of all, I would say let's try the 50-50 thing.
Hello? Yes. Well, when would you be out? Well, when I'm running it, I'll be making my breakfast. So I'll only be like 7 minutes.
Matter about whose job it is to clean the hospital if you see danger. So for example, if you're walking past a burning building and you see a baby on the first floor that you can kind of grab or save or whatever, it's not, you're not going to say, I'm not a firefighter, I'm not going to try to do it, whatever, right? If you see danger, you have to act on danger. Okay, and I know that my situation might be a bit far-fetched that I made up there, but I'm giving you an example. So we know that it's not about job. So is it something to consider here? I would say not really, because it's not about whose job it is. It's about acting on danger, okay, and dealing with it. So see if you can contrast that to this one. That Merrin is running 5 minutes late for a shift.
Minor importance.
We do the 50-50 again. Once again, is the shift more important or the immediate danger in front of you? I would say the immediate danger. So I would say that rules out A and B. But this time, is there something to consider here? I would argue yes, because late for her shift means she's talking specifically about patients. And therefore, if she's late for a shift, she's late to see her patients, so her patient's health may be impacted. It's a potential. So there's something to consider here, which is what makes this C. So you can see we've got two very, very similar questions, okay, but one C and one D. And the reason why is because this one specifically mentions a patient in the shift. But overall, still, it's not important because in immediate danger in front of us, that's what will always be more important. Okay? I hope that makes sense. Okay, so on to the kind of, so all these are kind of like important questions. So the approach.
It's very
These
appropriate.
questions work exactly the same. Okay, so Gary's a medical student completing placement in an outpatient clinic. His next patient is 18-year-old Rachel with a significant heart condition. Rachel had surgery 2 years ago to insert a mental heart valve, and because of this, she needs to take blood thinners. She needs to have monthly blood tests to ensure that she's taking the right amount of blood thinners, as if not, this could have serious consequences. Gary notes that there were no blood test results for the past 2 months in Rachel's notes. Rachel confirms that she missed the blood test appointments because she does not feel they are necessary. So let's have a look here. Tell Rachel that it is important that she attends her blood test appointments. Okay, so sometimes the verbs can be helpful here. We'll come back to that in a bit. So let's 50-50 here. Tell Rachel it's important that she attends the blood test appointment. I'd say that's a good thing to do. I'd say it's between A and B. Okay, that's an appropriate thing to do. But is it very appropriate? Is there something like this that's not correct? Well, you can see it says here Rachel confirms that she missed the blood test appointments because she doesn't feel they're necessary. So the verb tell just means that they're just stating to Rachel. So it's probably not going to change her mind. The only way Rachel's going to attend the blood test appointments is if she feels they're necessary. But if you just tell someone, that's probably not going to change their mind. Instead, it says explain. I would argue that this answer is A. But because it says tell, I would say the answer is B because you're not really helping to change her mind, right? She's probably already been told that they're important, but she clearly doesn't believe it. Okay, but it's still an appropriate thing to say. But it's just not the greatest. There's something here that's not that great about it. Does that make sense? So you see this idea about the 50-50. So 50-50 into both sides, and then from there see if you can break it down again. Okay, and just one more thing. I know I said a lot of the answers are A and D's, but I've specifically chosen answers that have been more B and C to be able to illustrate my idea about the 50-50. What I'm still saying about more answers being A and D is still true. Okay, but I'm just trying to pick out specific answers to illustrate a point. That's all it is here. Okay, what about this one? So immediately.
They're all friends.
From Marek on Amy's behalf. So Greg, a dental student, is taking part in a clinical placement with 2 other students, Marek and Amy. They're all friends. One morning, Amy makes what Greg interprets to be an inappropriate joke in front of Marek. Marek does not say anything but appears to be upset. So what's the problem here? Marek is upset, and Amy's made a bad joke. What's more important? I would say Marek being upset. So immediately apologize to Marek on Amy's behalf. I would argue that's an appropriate thing. So it would be A or B, because potentially it'll stop Amy feeling upset. Sorry, it will stop Marek feeling upset. But is it the best thing to do? I would argue not, because there's something bad about this. And the reason is because it lets Amy kind of get away with it. Like, you're apologizing on Amy's behalf. Does that make sense? It should be Amy doing it, essentially. Okay? But at least you do deal with the immediate problem, which is Marek being upset. Okay, so on to the most least appropriate questions then. So with these questions, the important idea is see which main problems are there and if the option deals with the main problems. Okay, I know a lot of people do find these questions a lot more challenging and tricky, but the good news is these aren't the ones that are going to dictate your mark really. Obviously it's important to get them right, but they're not really the ones that are going to dictate your mark. It's mainly going to be those other questions, and that's why the 50-50 technique is going to be really important, I think. Okay, and yeah, like I said, they're not important as the other question, so even if you do get it wrong, it's not the end of the world. That's what I want to say, because a lot of people, students do stress about this. So let's have a look here. So Ava May, medical student, is coming to the end of the first placement in the hospital. As part of training development, her supervisors arrange a feedback session on performance in her first ever placement. The supervisor starts the session by
This seems like the best one.
Congratulating on the first placement. However, he proceeds to tell me that some of her colleagues have raised concerns about the way she speaks to her patients. Her colleagues have described her as rude and dismissive. So, suggest to her supervisor that she shadows the doctor so she can learn how best to interact with patients. Ask the supervisor that he can provide additional information based on feedback so she can better understand the issue. Tell her supervisor she would rather discuss the things she's done well. You quite clearly see that this is going to be the least appropriate because it kind of avoids the issue at all. Between A and B, I would say B is the most appropriate. The reason being is, with B at least, she's directly trying to find out what's specifically wrong with her style. With A, that's cool, but let's be real. She's probably not intentionally being rude and dismissive, right? So she can shadow all the other doctors for as long as she wants, but if she doesn't actually know what she's doing that's intentionally rude and dismissive, it probably won't change much, if that makes sense. So the top option's kind of a bit neutral. Okay, the bottom option definitely makes things worse because it avoids it, and the middle option is going to be the best. Okay, so what about this? So my
Okay, he said nothing is usually least, so I say this one. Let's say it's in order.
classmates are coming out of the final lecture before their exams begin. Maya overhears her friend Ronnie speaking to other friend Sadie. Ronnie tells Sadie that he will help her study the exam. The following day, Sadie tells Maya that
actual personal opinion, I would say nothing, because mind your own beeswax.
Ronnie cancelled their study session 1 hour before they were due to meet. Maya knows Ronnie cancelled on Sadie to go watch a film with another friend. So, call Ronnie to advise him to reschedule the study sessions. He told Sadie he would help her revise. Call Ronnie to tell him that he should not cancel on Sadie last minute. Say nothing to Ronnie as he is free to make his own choices. Okay? So, I would say, let's think about the problems here. So, Sadie doesn't get the help she wants, and Ronnie's done something that he shouldn't have done. So, the top one I'd argue is the most appropriate because it deals with both of them. It makes Ronnie realise what he's done is wrong, and probably lets Sadie get the help she needs. The middle one at least makes Ronnie realise what he's done is wrong, but perhaps it's a bit confrontational. And the last one doesn't do anything at all. So, the last one is going to be least appropriate. Okay? Does that make sense? So, it's not the case that there's always a secondary issue, like in the last one there wasn't, but in sometimes there is. Okay? Then focus on discussing.
This is the best one. Least appropriate.
Important things: interrupt the discussion and ask the group to vote on the matter that Danielle and Joshua are discussing. Facilitate discussion between the group regarding the issue that Danielle and Joshua are discussing. Approach. So the important idea here is Marie's a group leader, so she has to be able to listen to everyone. From the kind of use of the verbs, I would say this is the most appropriate because everyone's getting involved and they're listening to what they have to say. Facilitate to agree on an approach. Between A and B, so A says ask Danielle Joshua to leave their discussion later, focus on discussing more important things, and the second one is interrupting the discussion and asking them to vote. So the least appropriate is actually the last one because it undermines and disregards whatever Danielle and Joshua are talking about, which shouldn't happen. Yes, I know B isn't technically ideal about
So 69. Ha 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 ha, 69. Get it. I'm sorry. Divided by 2 is 34.5. So what is, oh, is this half a mark then? Okay. This is half a mark. And a full mark. So if I got half a mark in every question, I get 34.5. Oh, that gives me that's still really shit actually. 2 just seems to be common sense, really. Yeah, if I can get like 840 on this again, someone's getting done. I reckon I can get 700 on this pretty easily. Yeah, that was just all, yeah. Verbal reasoning though, oh my lord. Yeah, that was just shocking. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to do a situational judgment mark.